I'll call this meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the March 11, 2019 Operations Committee meeting. Before we continue with our agenda, I would like to announce a change to the agenda and the reason for that change. At this time, we are postponing the school facility study update presentation that was scheduled for this evening. We are blessed in our town with some very talented athletes. Thus, there are 3 high school postseason games scheduled for this evening, the state semifinals in hockey and basketball that our teams are involved in. The Board of Education members were concerned that these games would have precluded some parents who may have attended this meeting to share their opinions on this important topic. Therefore, the meetings for the facility study update presentation will be rescheduled, and we will share the new date as soon as possible. Now we will continue with the remainder of the posted agenda for the Operations Committee meeting at this time. Thank you. All right, the next order of business is acceptance of the minutes. We have the January 23rd, February 6th, and February 11th, 2019 minutes. Were there any corrections, deletions, or changes to any of these sets of minutes? Seeing none, we'll take them as a group. So the meeting minutes of January 23rd, February 6th, and February 11th, starting with Mrs. Raccio?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
And yes. Thank you. Next item of business is discussion and possible consensus on the financial report for February 2019. Mr. Barone?
Hi, can you hear me okay? Am I coming? Okay. Here we go. All right, so through the end of February, we're projecting a surplus of $808,739. That's a reduction of about $14,000, $16,000 from the previous month. And it also assumes that we're going to transfer money out of the contingency to support an the fire alarm for Sheehan High School. We need an alarm panel. We need to upgrade that. Is that correct, Mark? You want to just expand on that a little bit?
We talked about this a while ago. This panel is now considered obsolete, and the company will no longer support it. So right now it's still functioning, but it could fail, and we may not be able to fix it at that point. We thought we had some surplus money from projects, but Town Hall could not free that money up for us, so we need to look at doing it this way.
And what would be the cost of that?
It's just under $48,000.
Okay. No, I wanted it said for the public.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I thought I was gonna get to that in transfers, but I just wanted to clarify the total projected surplus. So going through the list of projections, the contingency was reduced only for that $48,000 purchase if you folks approve it here and at the board meeting. The benefit projection really didn't change that much. It went up about $13,563 related to adjustments in health insurance. A couple of folks moving from either family or dual to single, which obviously is less expensive. And also we have a couple vacancies that we're working on filling, and we project the insurance for those vacancies through the end of the year, and every month we reduce that projection because we assume that eventually somebody's going to come on board and pick up that insurance. The next item is the tuition deficit, which was actually reduced by about $60,400, and that's related to, we've got some students that are moved to a couple different outplacements, and the estimates came in obviously a little lower, but we also have some new outplacements that we don't have estimates for, so that's not in there. So that's a number that's obviously going to go up and down. The excess cost estimate, I'm not changing it at this point. We've filed our second report with the state as of March 1st, and the state will eventually revise the number we're getting, but I'm waiting for the state to revise it before I make a change on our estimate there. Transportation, again, the surplus went up a little over $19,000, primarily related to different bus routes that we either combined, canceled, or certain routes, if the students do not go to school, we get reimbursed, or we just don't get billed, so we reduce the costs on that. Salaries, not a significant change. The surplus was reduced about $18,000. Unemployment, I increased the deficit by about 3,000 based on the activity through the last month. Again, that one's a bit of a tough one to project because sometimes we get employees that pop on there that maybe were an employee in a prior year, so it's hard to anticipate. So I typically take what we spent and try to see if it's going to come out the same every month through the rest of the year. So that one kind of moves a little bit. The other accounts, I reduced that deficit projection by about $30,000 because we moved some expenditures over to the grants, so we were able to accommodate in one of the IDEA grants. Utilities, after looking at February bills, I'm projecting a deficit about $76,000, $77,000, and that's really being driven primarily by oil and by the natural gas, the object 690B. We have two natural gas objects, one of them 690B, and the other one I believe is F. The 690B, which we call interruptible gas or uninterruptible gas, I forget which one we call it. I believe we call it interruptible gas. We don't really interrupt it, but we used to do that at some point. That seems to have a pretty big deficit in it, and also the oil. The oil's tough to project because if we filled all the tanks at the end of the month, it overestimates what we're going to spend. So we'll look at that every month and take a bet, refine it as we go along. And then once we get out of the heating season, it doesn't change significantly. That was the big change, I think, in this month's projection was really the utilities. We look like we're going to have a deficit right now. And then the plant maintenance, we don't typically project yet. We project a little later on. And that, those are the main items related to the financial projections.
Questions?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Votto?
Could you explain the unemployment again? The difference in the 3,000?
Okay, the unemployment, the way we pay unemployment, we don't pay it like a private sector company. We don't pay a percentage of our payroll, almost like a tax. We pay it, I call it pay as you go.
Oh, okay.
If somebody, if we were to lay somebody off and they filed for unemployment, we would pay it out up to the max they're eligible, which is based on a percentage of how much they made with a cap. So what happens is, if somebody's let go, or sometimes even when they resign and if they're eligible for it, and we end up paying it. So periodically we will see, somebody pop on there who possibly we haven't employed in the last year, but because maybe they haven't worked or they had a quick start with a job and left, sometimes we still get a bill for that. So it's a little difficult to project in that, even though maybe we didn't lay anybody off, we're still paying these unemployment fees. Does that help at all?
I think so.
Other questions on the financial forecast? Was there anything in particular on the Munis report?
No, the Munis report we just provide just because that's our I guess, system of record for financials. So that we put out there, and then, no, so that we just really provide it every month.
Okay. We have a new support document that was just handed out to us, which is the proposed budget transfers. So if everyone can turn to that, please.
So this is the items we talked about at the last meeting. What Dr. Menzel asked me to do was to go through and reclassify, if you will, the items that were in contingency based on the negotiations we were dealing with or went through when we put the budget together last year. And I went through, and if you look, all the increases are basically, those were estimates of what it was gonna cost, with the new contracts that we negotiated. So the intent of this transfer is to move the estimates out of contingency into the appropriate payroll accounts, where we had, estimated the money. With that said, we just, I just want to clarify that 112Y and 112F. 112Y didn't exist last year when we put the budget together. It was lumped together with 112F. We created it to provide easier reporting out of the accounting system for custodians. But in any event, these are the amounts we had estimated, and we wanted to move them into the right accounts, if you will, objects.
Mr. Votto?
So, the number on the prior report for the contingency, 454,000, is
Yes.
that with these numbers taken out?
No, it is not. I didn't, no, that's
So it's gonna be $200,000 less.
correct, 201,543, correct. But it's not gonna impact the surplus that much, because it's really, what you would see, what you will see is a reduction in the projected contingency surplus, but an increase in the payroll surplus.
Right.
Okay. I still don't like that.
Mrs.? I'm trying to see who's down.
Purcell.
Mrs. Purcell. I saw a hand, but I couldn't see who it belonged to.
Okay, so the money that's paying out, is that like lump sum that they're getting from July to now? Is that what that is?
No, so when we did the budget when we put together last year's budget, we took certain, these categories of these employees, because their contracts were ending on June
Right.
30. So
Right.
what we did was we basically said, okay, we're gonna put in their salary at probably a flat rate, or whatever they're making, and then we make an assumption on, are they gonna get what percentage increase they're gonna get, okay? And so, if nothing changed at all, basically what this would essentially have the budget and the expenditures at the end of the year would be zero. But there's a lot of activity. So this is not a lump sum or a retroactive payment. It's, if you looked at what we budgeted for the custodians, it was essentially $41,732 less than we anticipated, because we knew we were gonna pay at least this, at least what their current wages were, and then we knew there would be some type of agreement to increase it. And our practice is we put that in the contingency.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
But
Mr. Votto?
But you're saying, though, that, I know this, I just want to get it straight in my head. When you did last year's, or this present year's budget, you did include some type of an increase in each of these categories, correct? In other words, you predicted that maybe, or you guesstimated that
For next year.
this group was going to get a 2% raise.
Correct, but we
You
did
put
not.
that in the budget.
But we did not, let's take the secretaries, we did not put it in 112F, we put it in contingency. So we did not. So if we took a group of employees and like, let's just assume this year, in a group of employees, the estimate is gonna be $3 million based on a contract that ends. And then we think they're gonna get a 2% increase or a 1% increase. We would put the $3 million in the budget in the regular object of 112F or whatever the right category is. The remaining 2% would go in contingency.
Right, all right. So that's why originally, when you said to me before, there would be like a surplus in the salary account.
Correct.
That's the reason.
Yeah, we're just essentially shifting the
I
surplus.
just need it repeated a
Yeah.
couple times, that's okay. Thank you.
Other questions? All right, so if you could drop down to the next part of that document.
Okay, so the next entry, or transfer, I guess is what we'll call it, was really, we know we would like to replace the alarm panel, and we thought, obviously, we didn't budget for it in last year's budget, because we didn't really know it was gonna be an issue, and it's still, again, it's working, it's not an issue, but this is really to be proactive and to get it replaced, so we don't have any, I don't wanna say fire drills, because that would be a bad pun, but any any type of emergency that we have to, you know, get it repaired.
So the total transfers out of contingency are going to be 249,543,
Correct.
adding those two together. Any other questions about these transfers of appropriations or budget transfers? No? If not, we'll take them all together. First, we'll do the financial report and the munis report. A1 and A2, we'll take consensus on those,
Yes.
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 and then we'll take consensus on the proposed budget transfers,
Yes.
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 and yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3B, the cafeteria reports for February 2019. Mr. Mencher.
Yes, we'll start with the B1 comparison report, which takes us through February. Our sales and revenue, we had a good solid month. We had 18 serving days and 174,398 totaled, and $24,553 for the better versus last February. On the expense side, we saw an improvement on our food costs from the previous 2 months. Our service and repair and maintenance bills continue to climb. We were also able to control our supplies for the month. So total expenses, as you see, are $160 and $12, which left us with a profit of $14,386. As you continue down the left side of the document under the reimbursement detail, we continue to see an increase in federal lunches and breakfasts. Lunches, as you see, were up $17,698 versus last February, and breakfasts were up $1,722 versus last February. On the bottom left of the document, the statistics, the revenue per day was up $1,364, and the expense were also up per day at $1,227, and our meals were up $4,985 versus last February, and our meals per day were up 276 meals versus last February. As we continue on to the top right of the document, the year-to-date totals, it shows our income is up $196,939. Our expenses are up $196,384, and year-to-date we are at a deficit of $41,789. The reimbursement section, as you continue below that, to date, the year-to-date totals, federal lunch is up 35%. Breakfasts at the high school are up $9,600. And the statistics section on the bottom right of the document is showing that we have 6 more serving days this year, and we're showing an increase in revenue and expenses per day to include 35,000 more meals, which equivalates to 203 meals more per day. Any questions on B1?
Mrs. Corso?
Yep, I have a quick question about federal reimbursement. So are we reimbursed based on the amount of students that qualify or the amount of students that qualify and get lunch?
Right, whatever we transmit through the point of sale is what we get reimbursements on, not eligible.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions on B1? Yes, Mrs. Castelli.
Dave, didn't we get money from the Board of Ed last year for last year's budget?
The
Didn't
contribution?
we support it? Yeah, didn't we get a
Yeah,
contribution?
you contributed last fall $17,000 to
Yeah,
us.
that's what I thought.
And this year we
This isn't
we have
showing,
not,
this is showing that there wasn't any.
Well, we did, last year, and maybe it's semantics, but we moved expenditures over related to maintenance and repair. And I believe the logic was that in the past, those were picked up by the board budget, not the food budget.
No, that's, I think that's another caveat. That's something separate. We did that a few years ago where some of the maintenance stuff, we moved over to maintenance.
That's what
You
we
know,
did
but-
last year, though. We did not, I mean, and it was, I want to say, November, December was when there was a significant amount of repair on I believe it was the fridges, refrigerators, and coolers.
Yep.
And that's, at that point, we had moved some of those expenditures over.
Oh, so we took the 17,000 and moved,
Yeah,
that we were
yeah.
contributing and moved it to that
Correct.
account? Okay, so it was like a transfer of
It
that
wa-
money
yeah,
to
it
another-
was-
I just want to make sure we're reflecting
Yeah.
this properly so that because I don't want you to be, I want this to be reflective of truly how much work you guys have done, how much
Yeah,
better
thank
you're
you.
doing, and I don't want it to be lost in the fact that you didn't get any money from us this year.
Right.
And so if that 17,000 needed to be factored in, I just wanted to make sure we weren't,
Okay.
messing it up, that's all.
Any other questions on B1? I'm a little puzzled about B2.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm here for. So B2, there's no document.
Okay,
All right.
that's what I was
That's
a
the
little
tricky
puzzled
part.
about, so I was going to
Right.
ask right off
So,
the bat
yeah.
where that was.
All right, so we'll talk about that. So the service cost guidelines, there's no document on B2. And last month, we talked briefly about putting together some guidelines on where we're at with repairs, costs, and maintenance year-to-date. And we wanted to bring that back to the table today and just talk about it briefly. Does it make sense to make some sort of guidelines for like what we just talked, Kathy? So Dominic and I were talking, and it continues to climb, and we had a bad week last week with 2 ovens, and it just continues to increase. So in analyzing our repair costs year-to-date, we would like to propose anything greater than a $300 expense on our bills. And we were hoping that the board would pick that up. That's what we're proposing, if we could talk about it. If we don't have time right now, or you could send it to vote. That's something that we would like to propose to you guys.
So, under 300, over 300?
No, over a $300 expense. So we continue to get expenses anywhere from $200 to $2,500 per repair, per school. And we were, anything over the $300, we would want to propose to the board to pick up.
What are the typical, what are some of the things that you monthly have been laying out as
Okay.
far as costs?
All right, I have a G&L account detail here that I looked up and researched from when we started back at school this year, and it continues, well, it's pretty consistent anywhere from the summer. We have bills ranging from $400, we paid a $2,300 expense in the summer at our DAG school, and then September was a tough month. We paid out over $3,000 to about 4 or 5 different schools.
Repairs, is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
Is that maintenance?
Yes.
Maintenance on like a
Service
walk-in
recall.
freezer.
Yeah, it's
I'm
either
just
heating and
flipping through.
cooling and appliances.
And that comes out of your budget or the?
That comes out for us, yeah, we pay for that. And like we talked about last year, you guys were able to support us with $17,000 in the fall. The previous year, the year I wasn't here, I think it was at 34, I remember, 34,000 contribution in 16, 17. And the other years, I'm not sure what the costs were.
But the previous year, I believe it was just a contribution set up. So when the budget was set up for both obviously food services and the operating budget, or the general fund, there was a transfer, if you will, set up as an expense in the operating budget of let's call it 35,000, but I don't have the exact number in front of me. That was an expense on our side and was shown as revenue on the food services side. And then last year, we had transferred those expenditures over because of all the maintenance and costs that that the food service department was, I guess, having to fix. And some of it was probably maintenance we felt that probably we should have been just doing all along And I think that was some of the rationale as to why some of those costs should have been over on the operating budget versus food service.
Mrs. Castelli, followed by Mrs.
So, Dave, those expenditures that we're talking about, they're not reflected on this B1 report at all?
They are.
So where do they show?
They are. So on B1, if you go to the
It's-
left side of the document under expenses,
Yep,
there's the word service
Yeah.
under food and milk.
yep,
So that gives you a total for the month, and then as you work left to right on the document, it gives you a year-to-date,
okay.
which year-to-date on the far right is $32,000.
So service is actually maintenance,
It's
basically?
primarily
Right.
service and repairs.
It's about 80% of it, yes.
Okay.
But I guess just the number for 17, 18 in February,
Yep,
that's reduced by the 17,000, because by then we had moved the expenditures over to the general fund, or the operating
you're
budget.
talking the year-to-date figure?
The year-to-date
Yeah,
figure,
yeah.
correct, correct. So it's not really apples to oranges.
right. Well, I know several years ago, we made a ruling or guideline, if you will. We moved a lot of the heavy-duty maintenance cafeteria stuff over to your budget, right, Mark?
Sinks and grease traps.
Right, that kind of, so we did, but, so this is other stuff that, would you then have to be budgeting, so how would, in other words, would this, if we made a move to say, okay, yep, anything over $300, we'll take care of it, are we gonna say that's gonna come out of our contingency? Or is that gonna come out of maintenance, that you should be bumping up your maintenance? How do we wanna handle that?
It would be difficult for us to put a number on that. Some of this equipment is old. Some of it has not always been maintained to the best standards. We've been working on that with Dave to make sure things are taken care of properly. We have refrigeration equipment that sat there and ran for years and years and years, and no one really did anything with. So Dave is meeting with a vendor to get a proposal for a maintenance contract per se. We'll see where that goes. We do need a physical inventory of equipment if it goes out to bid. I don't have that. That's something that Dave will have to supply. But that's about it.
Yeah, because once the cafeteria bank account, whatever, that supplemental income, whatever, what's that,
The money market,
the money bucket?
the money market.
Oh, the
I thought
money
it was a
market.
account, right? The money- we wish.
Once that money is gone, because I mean, that's literal, that's where my expectation would be, that's where you'd be taking it from to cover expenses, unexpected expenses would come out of that money. That's what we always did in the past. But once that money's gone, you'd have to come to the Board of Ed. I mean, there'd be no place else to go. So my question would be, do we want to then consider, we need to factor that into our contingency bucket, or do we factor it into the maintenance bucket?
I don't know. That's to be determined. Mrs. Purcell?
Okay, so based on the 32,000 that's there now, by the end of the year, and then you said about 80% of this is for maintenance, you're looking at maybe like 50,000, 45,000? I mean, I'm just trying to ballpark it.
Yes, at least.
Okay. And can we do something like, you can do above 300, but if it's over 4,000, 5,000, then that particular item has to come to the board specifically? Can we put a cap on it on the other end, so it's just not a poor, does that sound something we do? I don't know.
That's an idea, I think, but sometimes you have no control over that, though.
Okay.
What if it's something that has to be put in?
Put it right away?
But I like the idea, though, but I don't know how we would differentiate.
I don't know. Mrs. Raccio?
And just so I understand correctly, the 20,000 is really 3,000 because we have 17 to net against that? Or was it 37?
It was
down to
37, and
Okay.
it would have been 37 had we
Down to
not
20, okay.
transferred the money. Or the
Okay.
the
I
expenses
guess
over.
my feeling about the 300, whether it's 300, 500, 1,000, as soon as we set precedent to take that out of the cafeteria budget and put it over on the Board of Ed side, which I agree with Mrs. Caselli, it's pay now, pay later. I'd almost want to see maybe like a quarterly list of this is what we want funded, because the equipment is old. And I just fear that taking it out of here by just saying anything over 300 the Board of Ed picks up, like Mrs. Purcell said about having the operations and the maintenance update every single month, it keeps our eye on how much maintenance we have to do. And I would worry about people losing track of how much maintenance you have to do because of the age of the equipment and because of the fact that we haven't done full renovations in all of the kitchens. So I don't know what would be least cumbersome, but I would like to see something come in front of the board using the guidelines that the board establishes, but on a regular basis so that it's out in front of like, look, this is what we've had to do in repairs, whether it's 300, 500, 1,000. I don't know what we used to come up with the 17,000 last year, what number that was. I think it was quite a bit higher than the 300.
It would equivalent to that, yes. The 17 would be higher. I mean, I'm just looking at a G&L account here. If we were to do the 300, over $300 bills for year to date, it would be $8,977 worth of repairs to the board. So I did a spreadsheet here from the account, and each vendor, we would total $8,977, which are bills over $300 this
Okay,
year.
so that, I mean, that's totally, in
It's
my
not that
opinion, that's
bad
totally
here.
reasonable. But I just don't want to lose track of the fact that you have to do this much maintenance. And by just doing a blanket statement of saying everything over this, the Board of Ed will just pick up, I don't know that that brings the attention to it that we might want. That's my only comment.
Mr. Votto?
So let me get this straight. So right now, we've paid out $8,900 in expenses for maintenance?
Actually, if we were to do the $300 bill thing, Mike, technically, we're, just to get to February 1st, we paid out about $12,000 in repairs with heating and cooling and appliances.
And that money has come from,
That comes from our,
from your,
we pay that.
so I'm assuming that Mrs. Raccio just wants a list of these things as we get them?
Yeah, each month.
Yeah.
You just turn it over.
Yeah.
And how much did you actually put in for maintenance in your budget? It was the 20 plus the 17?
I'd have to look it up, Mike, actually, I'll look it up right here.
No, you don't have to tell me. But you did put it in.
I did do a little increase to next year too, because once again, the longevity of the equipment is getting older, and we have to do some preventive maintenance. And we're looking at a company this Friday who's coming in, giving us a proposal on, looking at preventive maintenance on a monthly basis to include the summer, which it's never has been done here. And we want to see what they come in at. And they have a per school estimate they're going to give us. So.
Mark, didn't we do some with the 11 school renovation? I thought like there was
No,
that
the
grease
11
trap, that reminds me of something.
The 11
Yes, I
school
remember that
renovation
too.
really did not look at the kitchens at all because those costs were not reimbursable. So that wasn't even considered during that project. We've done a lot of work, ovens, different things, mostly through the maintenance department. The service and repair issues, that's a daily thing. It comes up, stuff breaks down. That's a little bit different type of issue than what we dealt with. Everything we did was basically replacing major components that were attached to the building one way or another.
Okay.
I don't remember this really being pointed out per se during the budgeting process. Did you adjust in any way, or what is, are you advocating more in your budget for that or more in our budget for that? I'm trying to understand where it is or what the idea is on to where we're going to put this money. And this is just a discussion this evening to bring this up, not taking action on it because we're just contemplating this.
I think we started talking about it again this year because we're trying to get apples to apples, and it really isn't when you look at the last year compared to this year, because we did move those expenditures over, and then the thought was, you know, is that gonna be our main, you know, are we gonna come up with a guideline to do that every year? So it would clearly this year, and you know, we didn't budget for it, so I would assume come out of contingency. And we're pretty well down the road right now for next year's budget. But, you know, the thought was, do we set up a guideline to, you know, to address this? Or do we just really run it, you know, is the food service department gonna pick up these types of expenditures and we just move forward? But we were looking to really understand, you know, do we set up a guideline, or and if we do, what is it?
I like the idea of guidelines.
Yeah.
Gives us a handle on what's going on.
Do we want something more specific in writing presented to us before we go forward on this?
Sure.
I think that would be appropriate so we can see exactly how this would work.
I agree with that.
So, and I think
Mrs. Costelli?
yeah, what needs to be included in that, it would be, what's left, which one of these documents shows us what's left in the, money market?
Oh, it's coming up the balance sheet,
Okay, the
Kathy.
okay.
There's-
Because here's my, you know, quick thought synopsis of this whole thing here. Cafeteria is a self-sustaining budget. We don't give you any money. Board of Ed doesn't give it any money. You have this bank account, this bank, money market, thank you. I don't know why I can't, that keeps escaping my head. The money market account, which was always used in the past as, you know, the money you would go to when you needed to repair something.
Right.
So in my mind, you keep doing that until that's gone. Now, that's another year or two, you know, because I know you have to subsidize the loss you're showing as it is.
Right, but then,
Once that money's gone,
Right.
then I think the question becomes, which account is it gonna come out of, and how much are we gonna budget for that? But it's truly a contingency, I mean, because we don't know what it's gonna be, you know, so how much do you?
That's why I like contingency high.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, that's my thought, that we just need to know how much is in that contingency plan. What are we projecting, or what, Dave, are you projecting for profit or loss, you know, going forward, so we can kind of get our arms around this and
Right.
see where we would be.
I mean, it was my understanding that the cafeteria was supposed to be a self-funded enterprise account. And that's what we were supposed to be looking at, is that they had their money in that money market. And I agree with you that that would come out of there.
Right, but you have to keep in mind, Wallingford was very unique in that respect.
Right.
Most other districts are not self-sustaining, and we are starting to fall into that pattern because of all of the restrictions that have been put around us, both federally and whatever else.
Right.
So that's been an impact over the past few years.
I myself would just like to see a document laying out specifically what you have in mind so that we can see it in writing rather than just have a discussion about it. I would not be in favor of taking the consensus on the service cost guidelines unless I had it in writing to me. That's my opinion. I don't know what the rest of the board members would feel, but did we have another question down this end? No? Mrs. Raccio?
Dominic, you handed out this booklet today.
Right.
On page 44, I believe that's the balance that we started with, the bottom right corner, the 103. That's the remaining balance in the cafeteria fund at the beginning of this year. So if we take away our year-to-date loss of almost 42,000, the remaining balance we have is 61,800. Does that make sense to you? Am I close?
I just want to get back to the, what page were you looking at? The balance sheet?
44.
44?
Haven't done that in the past. We haven't taken that money out to pay off.
So basically, I think that's our reserve or contingency until the board is on the hook for anything, all of your losses.
Correct, well, correct.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the 61,800 would go up by roughly 9,000 if we did the 300 and above.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So the 61.8, which would be the 103 minus the year-to-date loss, that's how I got to the 61.8.
Yep.
That would be restored by about 9,000 if the board agreed to take over
Correct.
the greater than $300 expenses. Okay.
Mrs. Castelli, followed
Okay.
by Mrs. Purcell.
Okay, so that triggered a question. Are we talking about this guideline of $300 for the budget year we're in right now? Or are we talking about going forward? Did you mean that you want to be reimbursed now with this budget? Or are you thinking for next year?
I was thinking this year.
This year?
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking next year.
Okay.
Mrs. Purcell?
All right, so I'm just looking at the 2018, 2019 budget, and you have $20,000 budgeted for kitchen maintenance. That's on page 46. How much of that have you spent already?
Kitchen maintenance, we're at about $12,000 rounded up as of February 15th, and we had a bad week last week with 2 schools.
Okay.
So we're probably at 12, 13, 14. We're close to $15,000.
All right, so you still have so you're thinking about 5,000 left in that line item, possibly.
And we should be able to go through the 5,000 with 4 months left. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to decide if we
couple
needed to
grand a
do
month,
something like right now, or if we wait until you're close to expending your budget.
Yeah, it could go anywhere from 5 to 7 to 8,000.
It's budget.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Mrs. Purcell?
So the proposed kitchen maintenance budget for next year of $22,000, somebody may have already asked this, I might have missed it. Does that take into account the Board of Ed picking up anything over $300?
No.
So that would change. No,
It
never mind.
sounds to me like that would be what he plans to do.
Right,
Whereas the other 300 account is something that comes up
right.
unexpectedly. Is that what I'm assuming?
I'm sorry, Mike, I couldn't hear you.
In other words, the number that Aaron.
Speak into the microphone for the public.
The money that
Please.
Aaron, the amount that Aaron just said is what you're budgeted for any planned maybe maintenance issues. But the over 300 account is just for those things that come up unexpectedly. Is that, am I hearing?
Correct. It's every day, just like Mark said, everyday business. We
what you
walked in
mean?
last week, and believe it or not, there was a power surge at,
Yes.
we had a power surge at Stevens on a Sunday, Monday, when we had the snow, and it affected my electrical oven for $2,300. It was a mess. Just unbelievable,
Okay.
just from a power surge down the street. But anyway, yeah,
And-
we'll put something in writing for you guys, and we could talk about it at another time.
That would
Absolutely.
be, I think,
Sure.
a good idea to do that, so
Okay.
that we can be prepared to look at that and move forward if possible. But for
Okay.
now, I think we might need a little bit more information and it in writing. Mrs. Corso, did you have
Yes,
something
so-
else?
Yep, so I think also what would be helpful is if that kitchen maintenance is for $20,000, I'd like to have an idea of what that $20,000 is for. Like, you're saying that it's for planned maintenance and not emergency maintenance, correct?
It's for everyday use of our cooling and heating and our appliance costs. So every time we have to call our repair company, as soon
So
as
we have some of this budgeted in there right now? Some
Absolutely.
of this is budgeted?
yeah, we budget it, and the 22,000 was budgeted for next year, like you
Includes
see,
what's budgeted for
for
next year?
1920.
Any other questions on B2? All right, we'll look forward to having that in writing. Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll take care of that.
B3?
All right, B3. B3 is the cafeteria operations through February. As you know, totals from the comparison report from B1 roll over to B3. And if you look under February revenue, we see again the 174,398. And to the right of that, we see the meal counts at 40,231. And we continue to the right again, and we see a meal variance to the good for 4,985 meals, and the meal variance percent at 14%, and the variance per day is at 14%. Year to date, our meals, as you can see on the bottom of the top portion, the meals are at 35,137, and the meal variance percent is 16.772. And the per day variance percent is at 10.74%. We continue down to the second portion of the document. You have your expenses once again for February, and we see the $160.12 and the $1.164683 year to date for expenses. And continuing below that, you see the 6 more serving days this year. Income per day is at $95.97. And the expenses per day are at $99.55. So once again, all totals coming over from the B1. Is there any questions on B3?
No, I don't see any.
Okay.
We can move on.
B4 is our balance sheet that Kathy was talking about just a short time ago. We usually don't go over this in detail. It's for your records, and it shows you on the second line item down, Kathy, the money market is at 45 because we borrowed the 75 a couple months ago. Okay. Any questions on the balance report?
I don't see any, so we can move on.
Okay, we can move on to the next document is B5, the school participation report. On the left side of the document, we see the free and reduced eligible. We still see that increasing each month. I like to compare these February statistics that you have in front of you with last month, which you don't have, and also last February. I did some analyzing to see where we were at last February on some of the participation. Once again, we all know the eligible side of the document has been increasing on families that are being approved for the free and reduced state program. January last month, we saw an increase of just 13 families were also brought in, where 13 more families were eligible for the free and reduced compared to last month. And then February of last year, I saw an increase of this month for 433, which is a large figure, that 433 more families in February have applied compared to last February. So that's a significant number, and that's where we see the reimbursement rates and the detail that we show you of where that money's coming from. As we continue on from left to right on that document, I always report out, I like towards the right side on 3/4 away over is the average meals. I think that's an important statistic for everyone to know. And we continue to slightly increase. I see 35 more meals were increased compared to compared to January, just the other month, last month, 35 more meals. And to the right of that, I like to look at the total participation, the 94% enrollment, and I see that just went up slightly, less than a percentage point, but compared to last February, I see a 5.4% increase on the participation on that column. So, and then to the right of that, the percent of free and reduced meals, we climbed 7.3% compared to last February. So, some substantial increases in a matter of a year, as we see. I have any questions on the how the eligible part of the spreadsheet works on the left, and then you actually go from left to right, and then you do actual numbers in the middle of the document.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, Dave, I just wanted to, because you and I had talked about this a while ago, I think it's appropriate now. What's the status with our breakfast programs?
Breakfast right now, we are piloting Pond Hill and Stevens for a May 1st rollout.
Yep.
I met with the fire chief today at Stevens with the principals, and we're moving forward with to propose a mobile food cart in the hallway when the students come in. We feel that the
Stevens.
cafeteria will not help. There's lots of statistics out there that if to get the student off the bus and go down a couple hallways, there's not enough time in the day, in the morning, I mean, plus the supervision. So the state breakfast expansion team that worked with me last year on the middle school project, we're still going forward on proposing that to everyone, and the principals are on board, or the two principals are on board, and we're going to market it, and we're moving forward. We applied for funding with the New England Dairy Council. I applied for a grant. We're waiting to get some approval on that for the cart and the point of sale tablet, which would be at the point of sale for my operator, and so that's where we're at. And then if all goes right in May and June, we're going to roll out the elementaries for September 1st, and we're excited about it.
I mean, right now, do you see anything that's insurmountable where we, let's say a middle school, or, because I know you were telling me there's logistical problems.
Right, so the elementary is a lot more feasible with just the one cart.
Yep.
But now we're looking at a little different setup at Pond Hill. We might need the two carts because of the egress regulations in the hallways. We can't put a cart in the main hallway, so that's where I'm working with the fire chief and see what we actually could do. So we had a pretty good meeting today. We'll keep you informed on the progress of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on B5? Mrs. Castelli?
So Dave, do we, the software that supports parents putting their money in, for their kids, whatever they call that?
Meal pay.
Meal pay, okay, meal pay.
Money market.
Yeah, thanks. Is every student's name in there, or is it just the kids that?
It works
choose to
off of Power
participate?
School, so every kid's name is in there.
Every kid's name
yeah,
is in
yeah.
there.
They all
So-
have an ID number.
So do you have the ability to extract a report from meal pay that of the kids that never buy lunch, the kids that buy lunch once a week, the kids that buy lunch twice a week? Is there a way to get that data?
Yes.
There is. Have we ever tried to do anything with that data?
We have to be careful how we do with that data. The state child nutrition people that we report to, you can't single out a family that's on benefits, that's not on benefits, so it would have to be a complete rollout of the district. So if I was to send out a letter to a selected hundreds of families that aren't, I would have to send it out to the whole district, to every family. They're very strict on that because the confidentiality of the
Right.
benefit.
No,
and
because
all.
I'm wondering if there's a way that we can try to find out why kids aren't buying lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mixture of everything. I've heard everything, especially as the kids get into the secondary schools and high school. There's a little embarrassment thing going on there. Some of the kids don't care. They just, if they have the benefits, they don't have a problem with it. But a lot of the kids just don't participate, and it's not just happening in Wallingford.
No, I don't mean the free and reduced.
Oh,
No, I'm
just you're
talking in
about the paying
general.
students,
Right,
the general
general.
paying
But
students.
like, why aren't you buying lunch?
Right.
Is it
Well,
is it the
we-
cost? Is it the quality? Is it
Yeah.
you prefer to wait till you get home?
We captured a lot of that during the survey. We captured a lot of those results last year in the winter. It's anywhere from long lines to quality of food to, the top three we knew about, and we worked hard at it. And, the board was able to give me some money for some equipment at the high school for self-service merchandising, and we're speeding up the lines now. The kids have more time in the dining rooms. It's working. It's just taking a little time, and the participation's up, and we're giving them better quality food, I think, too.
Other questions on B5? Seeing none, we'll move on to B6.
B6 is our marketing plan and customer service. On B6, if you look on the bottom left of the document, it just shows under February four things I worked on, anywhere from the grant application for the elementary breakfast program we just talked about. I was able to send that in for funding. We continue to roll out the elementary junior chefs competition, which, as you know, is this Thursday. I worked hard at it all month. some good things happening on that end. I met with the admin council to discuss schools joining the food services on field day. Dr. Menzo and Carrie were able to let me talk for a few minutes to the principals to hopefully join us in June and to give us that revenue that we need. And we had some schools join us last year, so it's a good positive note on that end. And then I also met at the Ben Haven School with the business manager. She's possibly looking for us to support her with a few things, but I met with her and her team, and where they need some support, so we're gonna see if we could provide anything.
Regarding meeting with Ben Haven, are they requesting anything with regard to special diets or consistencies? Or
That was talked about. That was talked about, and then we could accommodate that through a few medical documents that we need from the state just by their doctor, and just the same practice we do here in the district. It's pretty simple.
I was wondering about that when I saw that you had met with them, because that might be helpful for them to
Yeah.
have that
We're doing the
provision of service.
gluten-free, we just picked up some, 2 new families with gluten-free diets. We're able to feed them now almost daily, and we've never had that business before, so we were able to accommodate a few elementary parents and students, and we're currently working on that. But small school, as you know, there's only 45 enrollment. You know, they might just need food dropped off daily or weekly, and she's gonna bring it to her team, and we're gonna see what we could do. But
And just to point out again, if you could just announce for the public, the elementary, the chef program.
yeah, so the junior chef's final cook-off is this Thursday at approximately 5:30 at Sheehan High School. 4 finalists were chosen, 1 from each school, and we have some judging, 4 judges, and they're going to have 45 minutes to create their award-winning healthy breakfast item.
I think that's very exciting, and I think it's something
It's going to be a lot of fun.
great,
and,
and
yeah, we're looking forward
just so
to it.
that folks know that they
Yeah,
can
we'll take a lot of pictures for you
come and
guys.
observe that. That'd be great.
Yep.
It's part of the health and fitness fair, right?
I'm sorry?
It's all part of the health and fitness fair that night.
Right. We chose the topic of a healthy breakfast just to support that and the vision we're going, and which we really want to bring the breakfast program in, because we see it's successful in the high schools, so we want to bring it to the elementaries. So,
I think that's great. It's a great opportunity.
yeah. So the next page on the marketing is the secondary schools, as you know, middle school, high school, and there's 2 on the bottom. I networked with the Lyman Hall print class, so it brings cost savings on new published monthly menus and student involvement. So I found out from Mr. Corso they have a new state-of-the-art printer from last year, and we were able to finally do something with them instead of contracting out a large wall menu. We're able to, the print class is able to do that, and they did their first set of menus for us for March, so they're all hanging in the secondary schools. So we're kind of excited about that, and students are putting it together, and it's a low-cost item, and we used to get these menus purchased in my other districts, and they were probably 3 times the value. So for $4, I could get a great menu from Mr. Corso's printer, so we're kind of excited about that. And it actually, it gets advertised on the wall in the dining rooms, and I'm really trying to focus on the paying student, like we talk about, Kathy, is looking on this massive, large calendar menu and seeing what the hot food creations are, and just to capture some of those. That's all I need. So. And then the last one was school lunch directors meeting. I networked with a bunch of directors at Cheshire, and she hosted about 8 of us, and we got some good ideas there, and took some nice pictures, and doing a nice job over there, and we want to bring some of those successes over to Wallingford. The last document, B6, is the customer service, and we had 1 new incident, and we resolved it. It was pretty minor. Once again, another power outage at Pond Hill. And it was out on a Sunday for, I think it was out, 8 hours. So we just had the milk had to get discarded the next morning, and we checked in with the Board of Health, and everything was fine, and we just discarded some milk, and not a lot. Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take consensus on B1, B3, B4, B5, and B6, and we'll leave B2 off pending further documentation. So again, we're taking consensus on the cafeteria reports, B1, B3, B4, B5, and B6. Starting with Mrs. Raccio?
Yes.
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 And yes, thank you. Mr. Deptula, we're up to 3C, the maintenance.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I only have one major change to report from last month. The Stevens Nature's Classroom, the tree company's been on site for 4 days now, and they've accomplished an amazing amount of work. They have another couple days of handwork and tree climbing that will not be completed till the snow cover in that wooded area is gone. But it's turning out very nice, and it should end up being about, I think, a total of 6 days on the job site. So the name of the company is Better Cut, and we expect all those services to be donated. Thank you.
Any questions? As indicated before, the facilities update and the facilities study presentation were taken off the agenda. Is there any public comment this evening? Any public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.